Welcome back to the Time Cabin. Today, for our deep dive, we're heading into, well, a place you think you know, 17th century Versailles.
Ah, yes. Visions of gold, mirrors, huge gardens.
Exactly, all that glitter. But the material you shared with us, it paints a slightly less fragrant picture.
That's putting it mildly. We often see the romanticized version, don't we? The pinnacle of elegance.
But this text talks about, the glorious stench
Yeah.
and literally tripping over chamber pots in hallways. It's quite
Mm,
the image.
It really is. So today, we're peeling back those layers. We're looking at what daily life was really like inside Versailles during its heyday, based on this text.
Right, focusing on Louis XIV's time, when Versailles just exploded, really, from hunting lodge to this massive symbol of power.
And packed to the rafters. The text mentions up to 10,000 people, nobles, servants, courtiers, everyone crammed in.
10,000. But, and here's the kicker, with barely any basic facilities, like proper sanitation.
Which brings us straight to hygiene. Or maybe the lack of it.
Yeah.
The idea of Versailles being sparkling clean. Yeah, that's pretty much a myth, according to this source.
Okay, so let's dive into that. The text had that amazing or maybe shocking detail about the Sun King himself, Louis XIV.
Oh, the bathing statistic.
Yeah, reportedly bathed only, what, 3 times in his entire life?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
And the astonishing thing is, that wasn't seen as particularly strange back then.
But why? Didn't they, get dirty?
Well, yes, but the prevailing idea wasn't that water cleaned you.
Yeah.
It was actually seen as potentially dangerous.
Dangerous. How so?
The belief was that hot water opened your pores. And open pores were like little doors for, well, anything nasty floating around. Evil spirits, deadly miasmas, and vague germs, as the text puts it quite vividly.
Wow. Okay, so no baths. What did they do instead? Just stay smelly.
Not quite. They practiced what the text calls a kind of dry cleaning for humans.
Dry clean.
Yeah, wiping down the skin with cloths, maybe soaked in vinegar or scented water. And then perfume. Lots and lots of perfume.
So it wasn't about being clean. It was about masking the natural aroma.
Precisely. Appearance was everything. A clean linen shirt, visible lace cuffs, powdered wigs, makeup, that's what mattered. What was underneath? Less important.
The text had that great line. Hygiene was in the eye of the beholder, assuming the beholder hadn't passed out from the stench.
It paints a picture, doesn't it? A very strong smelling picture.
Okay, so if bathing was rare, what about the other basic need? Toilets. You mentioned the lack of facilities.
Oh, the toilet situation, or
Yeah.
rather the non-situation. It's genuinely staggering when you read about it in your source. For potentially 10,000 residents.
How many toilets did they actually have?
According to the text, incredibly few. Maybe a handful of rudimentary ones. Certainly nothing like we'd imagine for a palace that size.
Yeah. Wait, 10,000 people, almost no toilets. Where did everyone,
Yeah.
go?
Well, the text is pretty blunt about it. Essentially, anywhere they could find a bit of privacy. Or even not so much privacy.
Think where?
Corners of rooms, hallways, behind tapestries, under staircases.
No, really.
Yeah.
Just in the palace corridors.
Seems so. The text even mentions people relieving themselves in the gardens, sometimes right in the famous flower beds or among the orange trees in their tubs.
The poor gardeners. You'd need hazard pay for that job.
You really would. And it gets worse, if you can believe it.
Oh, I'm almost afraid to ask.
Waste disposal. Since there wasn't really a sewage system to speak of, the common practice was just chucking the contents of chamber pots out the windows.
Out the windows. Onto what?
Into the courtyards, the gardens. Potentially onto anyone walking below if they weren't careful.
Oh, that's horrifying.
Yep.
Imagine taking a stroll and yikes.
Exactly. And beneath the palace itself were these large cesspools. Basically pits for all the waste.
Which I'm guessing weren't exactly well maintained.
Not according to the text. They were often overflowing, poorly sealed, and dangerously close to the wells.
Wells used for.
Laundry, cleaning, and sometimes, unfortunately, even drinking water.
Oh, no. Don't tell me.
Yep. The text directly links this lack of sanitation to a mysterious rise in disease at Versailles. It's not so mysterious when you think about potential water contamination, is it?
Not at all. It's basic public health, which they just didn't grasp. Okay, moving on before I feel sick. Fashion. They might not have bathed, but they looked the part, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fashion was paramount. But some of those trends, as detailed in the source, were, let's just say they had side effects.
Like the makeup.
Precisely. That fashionable pale look, achieved with something called Venetian ceruse,
Which was
a white powder made with lead.
lead on their faces. Didn't they know it was poisonous?
Apparently, the desire to look pale and frankly a bit sickly, which was fashionable, outweighed the risks. The text mentions the consequences: tremors, hallucinations, severe skin damage, scarring, basically lead poisoning.
That's insane. They were literally poisoning themselves for fashion.
It seems that way. And if the lead caused blemishes or you just wanted to add intrigue.
Beauty spots, the little black patches, the moushes.
Exactly. Your source mentions they were used to cover imperfections, but also had a kind of code.
A code? Like what?
Depending on where you placed it near the mouth meant flirty, by the eye meant mysterious, that sort of thing.
And didn't the text say something funny about having too many?
Yes, apparently a whole constellation of them was a subtle, or maybe not so subtle, hint that perhaps the wearer wasn't too keen on that vinegar wipe down.
Ah, a polite way of calling someone dirty. Okay, what about the hair? The iconic wigs.
Oh, the wigs. They are huge, elaborate constructions, not just human hair. Either the text mentions horsehair, goat hair,
Yeah.
built up into these towering styles.
Those have been heavy and hot.
Extremely, and also, according to the source, prime real estate for unwanted guests.
You mean like bugs?
Lice, certainly. Fleas, yes. And the text even mentions the possibility of small rodents nesting in there sometimes.
Stop it. Mice in your wig. That's the stuff of nightmares.
It sounds truly awful, doesn't it?
Ugh.
The source mentions people carried special long-handled scratchers to get at the itch without removing the whole thing.
Wig scratchers. Okay.
And there's even a detail about some nobles leaving their wigs out at night, hoping the cats would delouse them.
Hoping the cats would clean their wigs. I'm not sure that's effective pest control.
Probably not the most effective, no. It just highlights the pervasive nature of the problem.
Okay. Wigs, makeup. What about teeth? Dental hygiene. Please tell me it gets better.
I wish I could. The source gives the example of Louis XIV again. He had numerous teeth extracted, apparently quite brutally. How so brutally that it supposedly left him with a fistula, a hole, basically going from his mouth up into his nasal cavity.
That's disgusting. How did he even eat? Or drink?
With great difficulty, one imagines. And keeping the remaining teeth clean. The methods described in the text sound pretty experimental.
Like what? Twigs and...
Sticks, yes. Rubbing with salt, chalk, maybe some crushed coral. And for the truly dedicated,
Let's say it.
Urine. Apparently, rinsing with fresh urine was considered a decent option by some.
Okay, that's... Wow, they really had a different concept of health, didn't they?
Vastly different. But amidst all this grimness, the source does mention one small step towards something we might recognize. The commode.
Ah, the toilet chair. So a bit more civilized.
For the very wealthy, yes. It was essentially a nice box, often ornate, with a lid and a porcelain pot inside. A luxury item.
And someone had to empty it, I assume?
Indeed. A servant's job, and probably not the most coveted position at court. You'd use it, then they'd whisk it away.
Still better than a hallway corner, I suppose?
Definitely. Though even that wasn't foolproof. There's a famous story, maybe not in this specific text, but from the era, about Louis XVI and a cat.
A cat in the commode.
Apparently, a cat had curled up for a nap inside the chamber pot, and when the king sat down, well, claws were involved.
Okay. Oh my goodness. That sort of sums it all up, doesn't it? The absurdity.
It really does capture the essence of Versailles that your source describes. This incredible, glittering symbol of power and art.
Built on top of, well, filth.
Exactly. Decadence built atop a cesspool, as the text says. Perfume over pestilence. Wigs over reason. It's a powerful image.
And millions visit Versailles today, taking selfies, admiring the Hall of Mirrors.
Probably completely unaware of the olfactory reality of the 17th century within those same walls. The source reminds us of that gap in perception.
It's true. As the text concludes, in Versailles, everything glittered, even the chamber pots. A reminder that appearances aren't everything.
Definitely not. So, recapping this deep dive based on your source, we've seen the minimal bathing, the creative sanitation solutions, the risky fashion. It really turns the fairy tale image on its head, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It makes you think about how history gets polished, you know? We see the gold leaf, not the grime underneath. Thinking about all this, what detail from the text surprised you the most? What really challenged how you pictured life there?
That's a good question. For me, maybe the sheer casualness of the waste disposal. Tossing it out windows seems almost unbelievable.
Yeah, that one got me too.
Yeah.
So a final thought for everyone listening. Does knowing all this change how you view places like Versailles? Does it make you wonder what other glamorous bits of history have a less than shiny underside?
Or put it this way. If you could go back to 17th century Versailles with today's knowledge, what one thing would you bring? Soap, hand sanitizer,
A hazmat suit.
maybe a plumber. Something to think about.